The massive alien ship floated silently beside the human colony vessel in the darkness of space. Captain James Thompson stepped through the airlock onto the alien craft, his boots making soft sounds on the smooth, pearl-like floor. Everything around him seemed to glow with a gentle light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Welcome, Captain Thompson," said a tall, thin creature with skin like frosted glass. Its voice came through a small device hanging around its long neck. "I am Ambassador Corvin of the Galactic Council. We are so pleased to meet your people." James nodded and smiled. Behind Corvin stood 6 other aliens, all similar in appearance but with different colored patterns under their transparent skin. They were beautiful in a strange way, like living crystal sculptures. Their large eyes were kind and curious as they watched him. "Thank you for inviting us aboard," James said. "My people are excited to learn about the galaxy beyond our world." The aliens led him through corridors that curved like the inside of a seashell. Other crew members floated past them, moving with grace and making no sound. Everything was peaceful and calm. James had never seen a place so quiet and serene. "Your species shows great promise," Corvin continued as they walked. "In all our travels we have met many intelligent races. But most are like us, gentle beings who solve problems through talking and thinking together." They entered a large room with walls that showed the stars outside. Other humans from James's ship were already there, talking quietly with more aliens. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. Dr. Rachel Moore, the colony ship's chief scientist, was examining a strange device that looked like a flower made of light. "This is incredible," she said to James. "Their technology is so advanced, but it's all designed for peace and research. No weapons anywhere." An alien with blue patterns under its skin approached them. "I am Dr. Thalen," it said through its translation device. "We have much to share with your people. Art, music, science, philosophy. We believe knowledge should be free and shared by all." James felt a warmth in his chest. These beings were everything humanity had hoped to find among the stars: wise, peaceful, and willing to help them grow. The tour continued for an hour. The aliens showed them libraries filled with floating books, gardens where impossible plants grew in mid-air, and laboratories where they studied the mysteries of the universe. Everything was designed to avoid harm or conflict. Even their computers seemed to work by asking politely rather than forcing. "We have learned that violence brings only sadness," explained Corvin as they walked. "Long ago, our ancestors gave up all forms of conflict. Now we live in harmony with all things." Lieutenant David Walsh, James's security officer, looked puzzled. "But what if something dangerous threatens you? What if you need to protect yourselves?" The aliens looked at each other with expressions that seemed almost confused by the question. "Why would anything want to harm us?" asked Dr. Thalen. "We harm nothing and no one. We share our knowledge freely. There is no reason for conflict." David started to say something more, but James caught his eye and shook his head slightly. These beings had clearly never known real danger. They lived in a universe where everything was as gentle as they were. The group moved into another section of the ship. Here the walls were lined with containers made of the same glowing material as everything else. "This is our research section," Corvin explained. "We study many forms of life from across the galaxy." Suddenly, a soft chiming sound filled the air. The aliens stopped moving and their large eyes grew even wider. The chiming became more urgent. "What is that sound?" Dr. Moore asked. Corvin's translator device crackled as if the alien was having trouble speaking. It is an emergency signal. From the research section." More chimes joined the first, creating a gentle melody that somehow filled James with dread. The aliens began to move, but not quickly. Even in crisis, they seemed unable to rush or panic. "Emergency?" James asked. "What kind of emergency?" Dr. Thalen's blue patterns had become pale, almost white. "One of the containment units. Something has gotten out." "What something?" Lieutenant Walsh demanded, his hand moving to where his weapon would normally be. But the aliens had politely requested that all humans leave their weapons on their own ship as a gesture of trust. "A creature," Corvin whispered, his voice so quiet the translator barely picked it up. "From the dark world of Zerath. We study it to understand how life can become so." The alien never finished his sentence. A sound echoed through the corridors that made every human's hair stand on end. It was not quite a roar, not quite a scream, but something far worse. It was the sound of pure hunger and rage given voice. The aliens froze completely, their graceful movements stopping as if they had become statues. Their beautiful eyes filled with a terror so deep that James felt his own heart racing just from looking at them. Another sound followed, the screech of metal being torn apart, and then the most terrible sound of all. The sound of aliens screaming in fear as something found them in the corridors beyond. "We need to get back to our ship," James said urgently. But Corvin was shaking his head slowly, his whole body trembling. "The docking bay, it is between us and there. The creature, it will kill us all. We cannot fight it. We do not know how to fight anything." The sounds were getting closer. The screaming from the corridors grew louder. Captain James Thompson could hear the sound of heavy footsteps mixed with the terrible noise of metal being ripped apart. The aliens around him stood frozen like deer caught in bright lights, their large eyes wide with a fear they had never known before. "We must hide," whispered Ambassador Corvin, his voice shaking through the translator. "Find a safe place and wait for it to go away." But James was looking around the room with different eyes. He saw the air vents near the ceiling, the heavy furniture that could be moved, the emergency lighting that could be turned off. His mind was already working on plans that the peaceful aliens could never imagine. Dr. Rachel Moore grabbed his arm. "James, what are you thinking? We need to get out of here." "The docking bay is 3 sections away," James replied quietly. "We'll never make it past that thing, whatever it is." Lieutenant David Walsh moved closer to them, his face grim. "Captain, I count 26 aliens in this room plus our people. If that creature finds us here." A new sound joined the chaos, the wet noise of something being torn apart, followed by alien screams that were suddenly cut short. Dr. Thalen made a small whimpering sound and collapsed to the floor, curling into a ball. "It killed them," Corvin breathed. "Jorvok and his research team. They are dead." The other aliens began to shake and cry, making soft musical sounds of grief. They huddled together in the center of the room like children hiding from a storm. These beings who had mastered space travel and built wonders beyond human imagination were helpless against a single predator. James felt something stirring in his chest, something old and fierce that had been sleeping. He looked at his small team of humans and saw the same thing awakening in their eyes. Dr. Moore's soft face was hardening. Lieutenant Walsh's stance was changing, becoming more balanced, more ready. Even Dr. Phillips, the colony ship's botanist who had never hurt anything larger than a flower, was clenching his hands into fists. "The creature is hunting," James said quietly to his people. "It knows there's prey here. It won't stop until it finds us. Then we fight it," Walsh said simply. The aliens heard this and looked at them with confusion. "Fight?" Corvin asked. "But how? It is a perfect killer. It has claws that can cut through starship hull and acid for blood. Nothing can stop it." "Everything can be stopped," Dr. Moore said, and her voice had changed. It was still her voice, but there was something harder in it now. "Everything bleeds. Everything dies." The heavy footsteps were getting closer. Through the doorway, they could see strange lights flashing in the corridor as the ship's emergency systems tried to track the creature. Each flash revealed glimpses of something large and dark moving with terrible purpose. "We need weapons," Walsh said. James looked around the peaceful room. There were no weapons because these beings had never needed any. But there were tools. Heavy instruments for research. Sharp edges on broken containers. Cables that could be used as ropes. There, he pointed to a tall stand holding some kind of scientific device. "Break that apart. We need the metal supports." The aliens watched in shock as the humans began to destroy their beautiful equipment. They pulled apart research tools and turned them into clubs and spears. They moved furniture to create barriers and hiding spots. In minutes, they had turned the peaceful room into something that looked like a fortress. "You cannot do this," Dr. Thalen whispered from the floor. "Violence only brings more violence. It is wrong." "So is dying," James replied, testing the weight of his improvised weapon. "So is letting that thing kill innocent people." The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Everyone in the room held their breath. They could hear something breathing deep, what sounds like air moving through broken glass. Then came a new sound that made even the humans' blood run cold. The creature was smelling the air, hunting by scent. Lieutenant Walsh positioned himself near the doorway, while Dr. Moore and Dr. Phillips took spots behind overturned tables. James stood in the center of the room, his makeshift spear ready. The aliens could not understand what they were seeing. These humans, who had seemed so similar to them, were transforming into something else entirely. Their movements became smooth and dangerous. Their breathing slowed and deepened. Their eyes became the eyes of hunters. "Please," Corvin begged. "Do not do this. Run and hide. Do not face it." James looked at him with something that might have been pity. "We can't run. And we won't hide while it hunts innocent people." The breathing outside the door grew louder. Something scraped against the metal claws testing the barrier. The aliens pressed themselves against the far wall, crying and shaking. But the humans moved forward. Dr. Moore caught James's eye and nodded slightly. Dr. Phillips gripped his weapon so tightly his knuckles were white. Lieutenant Walsh's face wore a smile that would have frightened the creature if it could see it. The door began to buckle inward as something incredibly strong pushed against it. Metal groaned and started to tear. "Remember," James said quietly to his team, "we are not the prey here." The aliens heard this and felt a chill that had nothing to do with fear. For the first time in their peaceful lives, they were seeing what their new friends really were beneath the polite words and gentle smiles. The door exploded inward, and through the opening came something out of nightmares. But the humans were ready. The creature that burst through the doorway was everything the aliens had said and worse. It stood 12 feet tall on 6 powerful legs, its body covered in black armor-like skin that gleamed wetly under the soft lights. Its head was all fangs and hunger with eyes like burning coals. Razor-sharp claws extended from each limb, dripping with something that hissed and smoked when it hit the floor. The aliens screamed and pressed themselves against the far wall, their beautiful faces twisted with terror. But the humans did not scream. They did not run. Instead, something ancient and primal awakened in their eyes. The Zarathi paused for a moment, confused. In all its existence as the perfect predator, prey had always run from it. These small creatures stood their ground, and that was wrong. Lieutenant Walsh moved first. He lunged forward with his makeshift spear, aiming for the creature's side. The Zarathi was faster, spinning with impossible speed and slashing at him with claws that could cut through steel. Walsh threw himself backward, the claws missing his face by inches. But his attack was just the beginning. Dr. Moore came from the left, swinging a heavy metal rod at the creature's nearest leg. The impact rang through the room like a bell. The Zarathi shrieked and stumbled, black blood spraying from the wound. Where the blood hit the floor, it ate through the metal decking like acid. The creature spun toward her, but James was already moving. He drove his spear deep into the joint of the Zarathi's rear leg, twisting the metal to cause maximum damage. More acid blood sprayed, forcing him to roll away as it burned through the air where he had been standing. The aliens watched in absolute shock. These humans were not just fighting the galaxy's most feared predator, they were hurting it. They moved like they had been born for this, anticipating each other's actions without words, working together like parts of a single hunting machine. The Zarathi roared in pain and rage. It had never been hurt by prey before. These creatures were supposed to be food, not fighters. It lashed out wildly with all 6 claws, trying to kill everything in reach. Dr. Phillips dove under the swinging claws and came up behind the creature. He had no weapon now, having lost it in the first exchange, but that did not stop him. He grabbed onto the Zarathi's back leg and held on, his weight throwing off the creature's balance. The Zarathi tried to shake him off, but Phillips wrapped his arms around the limb like he was hugging a tree in a storm. The creature's claws could not reach him in this position, and every movement it made to get at him left it open to attacks from the others. Walsh had found a new weapon, a broken piece of the doorframe with a jagged edge. He slashed at the creature's face, opening cuts that leaked burning blood. The Zarathi snapped at him with jaws that could bite a human in half, but Walsh was already gone, rolling to a new position. Dr. Moore discovered something interesting. The creature's armor was strongest on its back and sides, but weaker where the joints moved. She began targeting these spots, her scientific mind analyzing the alien anatomy even in the middle of combat. "The joints," she shouted to the others. "Hit the joints." The Zarathi was learning too. It realized these prey creatures were working together, so it focused its attacks on separating them. It charged at James, driving him back toward the wall where the aliens cowered. James found himself trapped with nowhere to run. The creature loomed over him, all claws and teeth and burning eyes. Its jaws opened wide, showing rows of fangs like broken glass. But James did not look afraid. Instead he smiled. The Zarathi lunged forward to bite him in half, but James dropped to the floor and rolled directly between the creature's legs. As he passed under its body, he drove his weapon upward into the soft flesh of its belly. The creature's own momentum carried it forward onto the spear. It screamed as the metal tore through organs that had never known pain. Black blood poured down onto James, but he had already rolled clear. The wounded Zarathi spun in circles, trying to reach the weapon in its belly. This gave the others their chance. They attacked from all sides, targeting every joint, every weak spot Dr. Moore had identified. The creature was still incredibly dangerous. Its claws opened long cuts on Walsh's arm and back. Its tail, which none of them had noticed before, knocked Dr. Phillips across the room. But the humans kept coming. When one was hurt, the others protected them. When one fell back, another took their place. The aliens watched this and saw something that changed their understanding of life itself. These humans were not just fighting, they were sacrificing themselves for each other. Walsh threw himself into the creature's claws to give James a clear attack. Dr. Moore used her own body as a shield to protect Dr. Phillips when he was stunned. The battle moved across the room like a deadly dance. Equipment was smashed, walls were scored with claw marks, and the floor became slippery with acid blood that ate through everything it touched. But slowly, impossibly, the humans were winning. The Zarathi was bleeding from dozens of wounds. It moved more slowly now, its perfect killing machine body finally showing damage. But it was still deadly, still capable of killing them all with one good strike. That was when James did something that made every alien in the room question everything they thought they knew about intelligent life. He dropped his weapon and attacked the creature with his bare hands. The Zarathi, weakened and confused, found itself being grappled by a creature a fraction of its size. James wrapped his arms around the creature's throat and held on, his legs locking around its body. The other humans saw what he was doing and joined him. Together, they brought down the galaxy's most feared predator through sheer determination and the kind of primitive savagery that their alien hosts had never imagined could exist in a civilized species. The silence that followed was deafening. The Zarathi lay motionless on the floor, its black blood still eating through the metal decking with soft hissing sounds. Around its body stood 4 humans, all wounded, all breathing hard, all alive. Captain James Thompson released his grip from the creature's throat and stepped back. His uniform was torn and stained with the alien's acid blood. Deep cuts covered his arms where the claws had found their mark, but he was standing. They were all standing. Lieutenant Walsh leaned against a broken table, holding his injured arm. Dr. Moore sat on the floor, checking Dr. Phillips for serious wounds. Their faces were streaked with blood and sweat, but their eyes were calm. They had done what needed to be done. The aliens pressed against the far wall had not moved. They stared at the scene before them with expressions of complete shock. Ambassador Corvin's large eyes moved from the dead creature to the humans and back again, as if he could not believe what he had witnessed. "It is dead," Dr. Thalen whispered through his translator. "The Zarathi is dead." "Yes," James said simply, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "It will not hurt anyone else." "But how?" Corvin stepped forward carefully, avoiding the spreading pools of acid blood. "Nothing kills a Zarathi. They are perfect predators. They are death itself." Dr. Moore looked up from treating Dr. Phillips's wounds. "Nothing is perfect," she said. "Everything has weaknesses. You just have to be willing to find them." "Willing to die finding them," Walsh added with a tired smile. The aliens began to move closer, studying the dead creature with new eyes. Dr. Thalen pulled out a recording device and began scanning the body, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "The damage patterns," he muttered to himself. "Precise strikes to joint connections. Calculated attacks on vulnerable points. They did not just fight it, they studied it while fighting it." Another alien, one with green patterns under her skin, approached Dr. Moore. "Your injuries," she said softly. "You are badly hurt. Our medical bay can heal you." "Thank you," Dr. Moore replied. "But first, we need to make sure there are no other creatures loose on your ship." The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "Other creatures?" Corvin asked. "You said this was a research section," James explained. "If one containment unit failed, others might fail too. We need to check every level, every room." "But we cannot," Dr. Thalen said, his voice small. "We do not know how to fight. If there are others like this one, then we will deal with them," Walsh said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The aliens stared at him. "You would do this? Even though you are hurt? Even though you almost died?" James looked around at his team. They were all wounded, all exhausted, but he could see in their eyes that they were ready to keep going. Ready to face whatever other horrors might be lurking in the ship's corridors. "Yes," he said. "We would do this." Dr. Thalen's recording device beeped softly. He looked at the readings and his already pale skin became even whiter. "These readings," he whispered. "They cannot be correct." "What is it?" Corvin asked. "The human DNA samples I collected during the fight. The stress hormones, the muscle tension readings, the neural activity patterns." Dr. Thalen's voice was growing more amazed with each word. "They are not the readings of prey animals. They are the readings of apex predators." The room fell silent except for the soft hissing of the Zarathi's blood eating through the floor. The implications of Dr. Thalen's words slowly sank in. "Impossible," Corvin breathed. Intelligent species evolve from prey animals. Fear and the need to hide drive the development of larger brains. Predators rely on instinct and strength. They do not need intelligence. Dr. Moore stood up slowly, her scientific mind already understanding what the alien had discovered. Unless they faced threats that could not be solved by strength alone. Unless they needed both intelligence and predator instincts to survive. What kind of world creates such creatures? Asked the green-patterned alien. James thought about Earth, about the ice ages that had forced his ancestors to work together or die. About the predators that had hunted humans and the natural disasters that had required both cooperation and violence to overcome. A hard world, he said quietly. A world that does not forgive weakness. Dr. Thalen was still studying his readings. Your species evolved as persistence hunters, he said with growing wonder. You chased prey over vast distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. But you also developed tool use, language, and complex social structures. You became predators who could think. And now you are among the stars, Corvin added, his voice mixing awe with something that might have been fear. Yes, James said. But we brought our values with us. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight so others do not have to fight. Dr. Phillips, who had been quiet during the discussion, finally spoke up. You said there are other threats in the galaxy. Things worse than this creature. The aliens exchanged glances. The Devourers, Dr. Thalen said reluctantly. Machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. The shadow fleet that appears without warning and leaves only empty worlds behind. The void touched, who spread madness and despair wherever they go. And you have always run from them, Walsh observed. We had no choice, Corvin said defensively. We are not built for war. Our civilizations are built on peace and cooperation. But now you have allies who are built for war, Dr. Moore said. If you will have us. The aliens looked at the dead Zarathi, then at the humans who had killed it with their bare hands. They saw beings who could be gentle enough to admire alien art and fierce enough to tear apart nightmares. They saw the answer to 10,000 years of running and hiding. Yes, Ambassador Corvin said finally. Yes, we will have you. 3 days later, Captain James Thompson sat in the alien ship's medical bay, his arm wrapped in something that looked like glowing spider webs. The alien healing technology was amazing, wounds that should have taken weeks to heal were already closing. But he could still feel the ache in his muscles and the burn of the acid scars. Across from him sat the entire Galactic Council delegation. They had spent the last 3 days talking, asking questions, and trying to understand what they had witnessed. Their large, gentle eyes kept moving between the humans and the recordings of the fight they had watched dozens of times. We must apologize, Ambassador Corvin said through his translator. For 3 days we have studied your people like specimens in a laboratory. It was wrong of us. You were trying to understand, Dr. Moore replied from her own medical bed. That is what scientists do. I would have done the same thing. Dr. Thalen leaned forward, his blue patterns bright with excitement. But what we discovered changes everything we thought we knew about intelligence and civilization. Your species evolved as hunters, yet you developed art, music, philosophy, and compassion. How is this possible? Lieutenant Walsh, who was testing his newly healed arm, shrugged. Maybe because the biggest enemies were not always things we could fight with teeth and claws. Cold winters, diseases, earthquakes, those required us to work together. We learned that cooperation made us stronger hunters. But you can still become killers when needed, said another alien, one with purple patterns who had introduced herself as Dr. Marin. When we have to, James agreed. When something threatens innocent people. When there is no other choice. The aliens were quiet for a moment, processing this. Finally, Corvin spoke again. We have lived in peace for so long that we forgot what peace cost. We thought it came naturally, that all intelligent beings would choose cooperation over conflict. Peace does not come naturally, Dr. Phillips said from where he sat organizing alien plant samples. Peace is something you have to fight for. Something you have to protect. Dr. Thalen pulled out his recording device and showed them images from across the galaxy. Dark worlds where cities lay in ruins. Empty star systems where planets had been stripped bare. Ships drifting in space with no life aboard. These are the works of the threats we mentioned, he said quietly. The Devourers, the Shadow Fleet, the Void touched. For 10,000 years we have run from them. We have evacuated worlds, abandoned entire sectors of space, and watched civilizations die rather than fight. Because you do not know how to fight, Walsh observed. Because we thought fighting was evil, Corvin corrected. We believed that violence always led to more violence, that there was always a peaceful solution if we looked hard enough. Dr. Moore studied the images of destruction. Her scientific mind was already working on the problem, analyzing what she saw. These threats, do they negotiate? Do they communicate? The Devourers consume everything and move on. The Shadow Fleet attacks without warning and leaves no survivors to tell what happened. The void-touched spread madness that makes people destroy themselves and others. Dr. Marin's voice was sad. There is no reasoning with any of them. Then they need to be stopped, James said simply. The aliens looked at him with expressions mixing hope and fear. You would do this? Corvin asked. You would help us fight threats that have terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years? If you want our help, yes, James replied. But not as your weapons. As your partners. We fight together, we plan together, we succeed or fail together. Dr. Thalen's patterns flashed brighter. Your species brings something we have never had, the ability to think like predators while maintaining the values of civilization. You can understand these threats in ways we never could. And you bring something we need, Dr. Moore added. Advanced technology, knowledge of the galaxy, and proof that intelligence and compassion can work together. We have much to learn from each other. Over the next hour, they discussed practical matters. The humans would need to return to Earth and inform their government about the galactic situation. The aliens would need to convince their own people that alliance with predators was not only acceptable but necessary. There will be those among my people who will fear you, Corvin admitted. When they see the recordings of you fighting the Zerathi, they will see monsters, not heroes. And there will be humans who see you as weak because you choose peace over war, James replied. Fear works both ways. But fear can be overcome with understanding. Dr. Phillips had been quiet during most of the discussion, but now he spoke up. What matters is not what we were, but what we choose to become together. Your people chose to build a civilization based on knowledge and peace. My people chose to carry both the capacity for violence and the wisdom to use it only when necessary. Perhaps, Dr. Thalen said thoughtfully, this is why the universe brought us together now. Your people have reached the stars at the exact moment when we need what you can offer. The meeting was interrupted by a soft chime from the ship's communication system. Dr. Marin activated a screen that showed another alien, this one with silver patterns, speaking rapidly in their musical language. What is it? James asked. Corvin's patterns had gone pale. Long-range sensors have detected movement in the outer rim. The Shadow Fleet has been spotted near the Altair system. The room fell silent. Through the viewport, James could see the stars that looked so peaceful and beautiful. But now he knew that somewhere among those lights, ancient terrors were stirring, and innocent people would die unless someone stopped them. How long do we have? He asked. 3 months, perhaps 4 before they reach inhabited systems, Dr. Marin replied. James looked at his team, then at the aliens who had become their friends and allies. Then we had better get started. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy would not run from its nightmares. It would turn and fight, with the wisdom of peace builders and the strength of those born to protect. The age of hiding was over. The age of hope had begun.